Hello summoners and welcome to another ProGuides video. Today we'll be discussing one of League of Legends' most obscure champions, a fabled creature shrouded in mystery, wrapped in enigma. It's Aurelion Sol. Legend has it that Aurelion Sol is spotted once every 1,000 games, but that the worthy can master him. Recently we sat down with one of the greatest Aurelion Sols in the world to pick his brain about League's favorite space dragon. Always plan ahead. Before we get too far into it though, our question of the day is, which champion do you see the least of? Let us know in the comments below or in our ProGuides Discord, where we have great conversation and resources there for helping you progress. Now, without further delay, let's get into it. Always Plan Ahead originally climbed to high elo with Aurelion Sol, and still actively plays the champion to this day, all while broadening his champion pool to transition into the top of the amateur scene. Always Plan Ahead is from Ohio, where he used to wrestle and play football before beginning his League of Legends journey. He is on the rise in both NA solo queue and the amateur competitive scene, where he looks to pilot the Star Forger to make his way all the way up to the pro scene. In this video, we'll be doing a VOD review of Always Plan Ahead's Aurelion Sol play to see how he executes his games and pick up some tips and tricks. Now onto his champion of choice. Aurelion Sol is one of the most unique champions in the entirety of League of Legends. Originally teased as Ao Shin long before his release, Aurelion Sol is a maker of stars, and he reflects this in-game through his passive, which keeps stars rotating around him and by wandering the cosmos. Well, mostly wandering down to bot lane to 4-man me and my ADC for the third time in 10 minutes, but the cosmos. His orbiting stars let him push exceptionally quick regardless of what phase the game is in, and his W increases their speed, range, and power to make this effect even more potent. His flight ability on his E is one of the best roaming tools in the entire game, given its speed boost and ability to ignore terrain. To complement this uniquely roaming-based kit, Aurelion Sol is also equipped with a stun on his Q that grows in size the further he travels with it. The damage isn't exactly astounding, but being able to stun in such a wide area is, and it sets him up nicely to make Star Machine go brrrr. If enemies do manage to get onto him, his ultimate lets him blast them back to the range of his outer orbit, or so he can use it to finish off a distant kill. Honestly, it's up to you. Blast as you please, I'm not your dad. So what's making Aurelion Sol so good right now? Honestly, a large part of his power is due to the fact that nobody even knows what he does. Like, when was the last time you saw a devoted Aurelion Sol player? I think I spotted one in an ARAM last year, but it's entirely likely that this was just a hallucination. The point is, people aren't aware of exactly what his abilities do, and they especially aren't aware of his power spikes and his damage. So they have no knowledge of when to trade, or when they can and can't win an all-in against him. People underestimate Aurelion Sol's damage frequently, which leads to equally frequent deaths on their part. Beyond the simple aspect of people not knowing him well though, the best thing mid laners can do for their team in the current meta is win their side lanes through well-timed roams, and Aurelion Sol objectively is one of the best champions in the game to accomplish that task. Every time I see an Aurelion Sol ping that he's on his way to bottom lane and see him pop his E to run a lane-size stun down to us, I hear Flight of the Valkyries play and brace myself. The champion is insane. It's just that his uniqueness demands a level of dedication that most players aren't willing to put forth. Now that we know what he does, how do we build it? Generally speaking, there are currently 3 rune pages for Aurelion Sol that he can run and capitalize on, each with a corresponding item build that goes with it. The first one is the Electrocute build. With this rune page, you take Electrocute for burst, Cheap Shot and Eyeball Collection for extra damage, then Relentless Hunter for movement speed, and in the secondary tree, you'll want Mana Flow Band for, mana, and then Absolute Focus since Aurelion Sol rewards perfect positioning, and you'll want that extra kick in damage. This is the build you want to run when there are 1 or 2 prime squishy targets on the menu, with only 1 tank at most to protect them from you. Your goal with this build is to snowball your lane, then start one-shotting squishies at level 10 with your Flash plus QR or Flash plus RQ combos. Either way, it's a quick way to burst down susceptible targets and get yourself a good money lead. In terms of items, since this build is more about damage output and bursting people, your item order will usually look like this. Rylai's Crystal Scepter and Sork's Shoes will always be core on Aurelion Sol for this particular build path, since his passive stars being able to slow is what makes him a true inescapable menace. After that though, it depends on the state of the game. Are you ahead? Rolling in the dough like the god you are? If yes, then you'll want to go Spellbinder for its AP boost and its movement speed, Rabadons to really pump up the damage numbers, and then Void Staff to make your damage really hit home. If you're not so far ahead, then the safer, more consistent bet is to go Liandry's, since you're a short to medium range champion in fights that does more damage over time than straight up burst. Both its health and its rising AP are a huge boon for you. After that, go Zhonya's Hourglass to increase your survivability even further, and follow it up with a GLP to make yourself even harder to approach or escape from. Your 6th item is always adaptive to whatever situation you're in, so be flexible. If you need more damage against a non-tanky team, grab some more raw AP. If they've built a lot of MR, get Magic Penetration. You get the idea. On to the second build, the Phase Rush build. This one shines more against tankier compositions that Aurelion Sol can't quickly kill. Comps that mandate slower fights with a little more forgiveness in the build. This build is perfect for Aurelion Sol's bad matchups, allowing him to slip away from aggression and kite out any threats that befall him. Plus, with this increased utility from Phase Rush, once you have 4 items or so, you'll have outscaled most mid laners in the game as long as you've kept up in tempo with them. So take this build with you when you need to hedge your bets. You'll of course need Phase Rush, but after that you'll want to take Monoflow Band for mana, Transcendence for the free CDR, and Gathering Storm to help supplement your damage as the game progresses. Then you'll take the Resolve tree as your secondary tree. You'll want Bone Plating to help you survive through tough encounters, along with Overgrowth to increase your max health and make you a little beefier. In terms of the items for the Phase Rush build, you'll naturally be looking to go a healthier route to ensure your survival in long drawn-out fights. To that end, you're going to want to buy something like this. Rod of Ages is core for Phase Rush Aurelion Sol because it gives him all the stats he wants. He gets some damage, health, and mana. This item has it all, and since you're scaling anyway, you're not really too upset about missing the early damage. Which boots you buy is up to your judgment. If you think you can afford to take the Sorcerer's Shoes, then that's ideal. But if you're up against a lot of spooky AD champions looking to jump on you and kill you, then Ninja Tabi is the move. As always, your build path should also reflect the financial state of the game. If you're ahead, you can go Liandry's to further exacerbate your lead and follow it up with a Rabadon's. After that, you build whatever you think fits the situation. If you're behind or just even, however, you'll probably be more interested in Zhonya's Hourglass survivability, followed by Rylai's Crystal Scepter health boost and slowing effect to help you kite out fights. You'll have to be able to read the game and decide which items are going to work best for you, and this principle applies to all champions, so keep that in mind. The third build is the Conqueror build, which is sort of fringe, but it's worth mentioning. This is the rune page you want when you're against a team with a lot of lockdown and you need to sustain your way through fights rather than being straight up tanky and relying on Phase Rush's mobility. You can't Phase Rush if you're stunned after all, so Conqueror is sort of the next best option for going tanky. With this rune build, after you pick up Conqueror, you're best served by taking Presence of Mind to keep the stars spinning, Legend Tenacity to help you escape CC, and Last Stand since you'll be playing these fights at clutch tier levels of low health. Again, this rune setup is about survivability in the face of crowd control, so Resolve will be your secondary tree. That way you can take Bone Plating and Unflinching to keep yourself on the move. Item-wise, this build is functionally similar to the Phase Rush build, so kinda aim for a similar item path as well. But if you're absolutely destroying your enemy, feel free to dip into a more damage-focused item build. I'd maybe recommend some Merc Treads though if they're really packing the CC. That's all well and good, right? But what about the more advanced stuff? What about the combos? How do I go from run-of-the-mill Astro Lizard to full-blown Cosmic Dragon Deity? Well, in reality, Mastery over Aurelion Sol is more about your spacing, decision-making ability, positioning, and macro. But he does still have a couple basic combos that can make a big difference in your games if you can identify the right moments to use them. His first combo is his defensive combo. If somebody gets on top of you, pop your Q to stun them since it's almost impossible to miss at point blank range, ult them away, then use your W to start beating them upside the head with your stars. Hopefully you've planned around being jumped on and built appropriately to help you kite out, but even if you don't have Phase Rush or Rylai's Crystal Scepter, this combo is still usually enough to disengage any single threat and buy you enough time to peace out. This combo is your hero play, your flashy montage reel play. This is the squishy killer. Ulti them, flash into range, Q them to keep them locked down, and all the while your W stars have been smacking them to death, leaving only you and their dead bodies in the back of a fight. This combo is similar, but to the same effect. It just functions better when you know the squishy in question has no mobility available. You'll look to flash in, pop your Q to lock them down, then hyper beam them back so your W's empowered stars can start doing their work. These kill combos work a little better with the Electrocute build since it's the burstier of the three, but they can still work out with the tankier builds if you know for sure you have enough damage built up. This last one is pretty basic and implied in the champion's kit, but I saw someone play AD Yuumi unironically the other day, so I'll explain this just in case. Your Q's stun grows in size when you travel further with it, but the Q moves faster than Aurelion Sol's base movement speed. So it's good to use it with Aurelion Sol's E, which increases Aurelion Sol's movement speed to match his Q's speed, letting him really stack up the stun size. It's basic stuff, but it is really important. This is the bread and butter of his ganking. Moving on from combos, it's time to talk about the weak side of Aurelion Sol. We know what he's good at, but what is he allergic to? To put it bluntly, survivable bursty champions that have dashes. To put it more specifically, Irelia and Diana. Aurelion Sol hates these champions. They're excellent picks for getting up close where his stars can't hurt them, and staying there while they obliterate him with their very fair and very balanced damage and survivability. So, how do we cope with this? Well, the first step is the phase rush build. It's an absolute must when dealing with these kinds of matchups. Without its ability to help you get away, you're probably space toast. From here, look to use your level 1 advantage as a ranged champion to stack up a wave by zoning and poking the enemy. Your eventual goal here is to clear the third minion wave, the one with the cannon, and instantly reset. This strategy is commonly referred to as the 3-wave cheat reset. After completing your reset, purchase a Ruby Crystal and use Aurelion Sol's E to get back to lane. This Ruby Crystal will help keep you alive against tough matchups and ganks. From here, play out the matchup as best you can. It's hard, but it is completely doable. Your primary objective in games like this, where you can't snowball, is to take a more defensive role in teamfights, by neutralizing these champions through playing back and looking to stun them or ulti them once they go in. If you can negate their initial engagement and burst, you can outdamage them and save the fight. Now let's head over to the VOD and see some of this in practice. So here we see our hero, always plan ahead, laning against Vladimir. He's elected to go for the standard phase rush build since the enemy team will be hard to burst. So we can assume he'll be working towards Rod of Ages as soon as possible. Here we see Always Plan Ahead go for a basic Aurelion Sol trade. He uses his superior pushing to hit level 2 and starts stacking the wave. As soon as Vladimir steps up, Always Plan Ahead throws out his Q stun and activates his W, getting poke in on Vladimir, landing the stun, then letting his stars get in a little extra damage before they retract. This is the primary Aurelion Sol trading pattern as it allows for the least counterplay possible. This is also important because his wave management is setting him up for what's referred to as the cheat recall. So it's the third wave, aka the cannon wave. Always Plan Ahead has pushed Vladimir into his tower, and is now decimating the wave. He recalls, grabs a Ruby Crystal, and refreshes his Corrupting Potion. As soon as he completes his buy, he E's back to lane so that he misses nothing except for one singular minion while gaining a Ruby Crystal and Corrupting Potion refreshment in exchange. Special note here, if you look on the ground by the turret, you can see a marker for Aurelion Sol's E destination. Just a little neat visual that most people don't know about. This whole thing isn't exactly unique to Aurelion Sol, but he's very good at it. Due to Aurelion Sol's wave clear, which by the way is accentuated by positioning in such a way that his stars are hitting both the melee and caster minions, he has extra long windows between waves to do what he wants. In this case, Always Plan Ahead uses this time to put up a ward over the wall to keep himself safe. Throughout this VOD, you'll see him make use of these time windows to great effect. This is only the second example. Another good use of the time window between waves, Always Plan Ahead, moves up river looking for the roam, but instead finds a control ward. He destroys it, still applies pressure on the map, then returns to lane without missing anything. This is another little trick that Aurelion Sol excels at, the recall bait. He fakes a recall here, knowing that Vladimir will try to interrupt it. And as soon as Vladimir foolishly re-enters Aurelion Sol's range, Always Plan Ahead gets even more free damage. Here again we see Always Plan Ahead make use of Aurelion Sol's fast return to lane. He recalls, buys quickly, then E's back. He returns to lane so quickly in fact that he's able to interrupt Vladimir's recall, leaving him with the option to either A, go finish recalling but leave the lane state at Always Plan Ahead's mercy, or B, stay and be stuck with a simple Doran's Ring in comparison to Aurelion Sol's Catalyst and Boots. He elects to stay in lane, but as a result of his weakness, and his consistent inability to get a good recall in, he lacks the pressure to contest his enemy's play to take the first dragon. Yet another moment where Always Plan Ahead uses his champion's map pressure to relieve stress for his side laners. All he has to do is leave vision and the enemy starts spamming missing pings. The enemy top laner backs off, and he buys his own top laner some much needed space. This is just a picture-perfect example of Aurelion Sol spacing. There's nothing much to say other than just watch how well he maintains that perfect distance to outtrade Vladimir. It's just step for step right where he needs to be. Alright, let's end things with this really good teamfight clip. The fight begins in top, but Always Plan Ahead is cut off from his team by the Renekton TP. He activates his W to start dealing some damage while he kites towards the alcove. He bobs and weaves for a bit, then keeps his spacing right where it needs to be to activate his W again and dish out even more damage. He sees his Maokai is on the way, mind you, so he goes as long as he can, then pops the Zhonya's Hourglass to keep himself alive. The enemy team surrounds him. He then times his Q stun perfectly out of Zhonya's, stuns them, and escapes to the safety of Maokai, so he can dance around the fight dealing star damage. It's just so much immaculate spacing. It's not flashy, but it's really impressive. And before we go though, we're gonna wrap it up with some more direct questions to Let's Plan Ahead.
Hey guys, my name is Ian, also known as Always Plan Ahead, and I am a Challenger Ace Omen.
What advice would you give for people picking up Aurelion Sol to climb solo queue?
Initially, I would figure out what runes you should take for specific matchups because these runes are very versatile. And then after that, the next biggest thing would be star management and how to land basically every single star you can.
Do you think the rumor of North American mids being worse than imports to be true?
As a general basis, yes, but there are certain mids that are better and have the chance to improve to become much better than imports.
Do you think the Amateur League is much worse than the Academy League?
Yes, because outside of like the, I guess you could say like top 8 teams, skill discrepancy falls off very hard.
What are your goals in League of Legends?
I plan to go pro in Academy or LCS, and then see where that takes me.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on twitch.tv/alwaysplanaheadlol, and then you can find me on Twitter at alwaysplanahead1.
All right, guys, that's going to conclude this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure to check out ProGuides.com, as well as our YouTube channel for some more informational content aimed at taking your game to the next level. Drop a like or comment and make sure to subscribe to stay updated with our content as well. And until next time, best of luck on the Rift Summoners.